What does Black History Month mean for you, and why is it important to you?
I know we celebrate Black History Month in the United States of America in February, but Black History Month to me is I'm Black every day. But it is important because the more I learn and talk to people of other cultures, it's not everyone knows the history of what Black people in America had to go through. It's important so that people know I didn't just get to the pulpit because I went to seminary, but all of my life experiences are part of the culmination of how I ended up in the pulpit.
One of the reasons I'm happy that finally there is a Black History Month is that we can share, not only when you see the issues that we went through, the hard times we went through, but in some of the stories you hear, there's a lot of success stories.
But to me, it's a time of reflection, but then also it's a time to assess as well. I remember this black invention, but what am I contributing?
Yeah.
I'm only here for a short period of time, but what can I do?
What was it like for you growing up as an African American in America? Any challenges have you faced?
I grew up in a rural segregated South. Even though when we hear that, we think all of that was over after civil rights, but it wasn't. I did not get probably the best education. I was often overlooked. I had a counselor tell me that I was an at-risk student because I was Black and I was the child of a single mother. And so instead of that counselor saying, I see your potential, I see the grades you're making, I see the work, I faced people saying I would never leave high school, I would never graduate from college, and if I did do those things, I would end up being an African-American single mother. Growing up in rural South, I didn't get to go to the public swimming pool and learn how to swim. In 1994, when I graduated high school, we still had segregated proms. I experienced a lot of racism growing up. Even to this day, as the last time I went home and Thanksgiving, I was approached with racism. Those challenges could prevent you from excelling, but actually it was what motivated me to be where I am today.
I too am from South Georgia, and almost 10 years, maybe 8 years apart, I have experienced some of those same things. Those different challenges that we go through, I guess, really forge us to who we are, but we're not too far removed. You remember these things, and it really forces you to keep your head up.
Yeah.
I would say that, like, you gotta turn it into something where, like, I'm not gonna have my head down, I'm gonna keep my head up because I know I can.
Yeah, I'd agree.
I was born and raised in Washington, D.C. in 1950, which means it was a segregated Washington, D.C. So we African Americans were over on this part of town, very limited to what we could access. When I was in high school, most of my teachers, all of the counselors were white. And my counselor told me that I was going to go and be a DC transit bus driver like the other African American kids.
Wow.
In the area. And I just didn't believe that. 40 years of my career was as a commercial lender in a bank.
What does it mean for your life to be a pastor, an African American pastor?
It's a blessing and a burden, right? I thank God for the calling of my life, but it's a burden in the same token because you're scrutinized, right? And it's almost like you can't make mistakes, right?
It's a privilege, it's an honor, but I also know that the task is heavy as an African-American female pastor, because we've heard things like, the only way that the congregation is going to listen to you is if you preach like a man. I am standing in the shoes of the next young African-American pastor behind me. And what I do and how I operate, unfortunately, will judge sometimes whether or not another African-American female is allowed in the pulpit.
A lot of racial issues, a lot of people who didn't want me to succeed. I never forget my mother saying in one of my frustrated periods, if you quit as a commercial lender in a bank and a vice president, how long would it take for another African American to get to this point in the United States of America? Wow. So you know what? You got to be strong.
To be an African American leader and pastor in America today requires humility. It also reminds me of my grandmother. While she was not a pastor, she was a leader in her church. And so today I get to live out my grandmother's wildest dreams, if I could say.
It is a major accomplishment, but the job isn't done. Yes, you have two, thank the Lord, here in this body. Other churches, you don't see it.
Yeah.
And representation matters.